inspiring your higher potential as a person has always involved, if you're in a 5D spectrum, expanding your own consciousness. So this means you work with left and right mode equally, your thoughts, your emotions. You actually actively have not used language that is of an inner critic or an outer critic. That's where the inner growth mindset is for the love cycle individual. Now, before you can be in a love cycle, for those who have the heartbreak, gut wrench, torn apart, and so the experience of what is instead a shame cycle that you get to learn about, in my case, from my trauma educators as a person who continues to support people with personal development, besides 5D mysticism. And in the Enlightenment Soul Age group, there are some of those who are intuitives, others just functional adults, which are 5D educators, really. And so they're expanding people's consciousness through bringing together different disciplinary fields of thought. They, in fact, build relationships. Any person who's 5D is a functional adult, forgiving and nuanced, and we don't insult our colleagues. And subject matter experts are bountiful. People are bountiful. Difference of opinions are bountiful. They're not a threat. The 5D person, the infinite higher human consciousness potential experience person, is using this in a spectrum of a restorative embodied self. And this is integrated because we navigate our thoughts and emotions, the sensations that arise, with awareness. This is what consciousness, which is why we do Dharma, not karma, but not because karma is a bad thing. No, karma is actually actions. And so there are people who live their karma. When used with knowledge, what this means is if you speak words and take steps, and then let's say I made a choice this year, and next year I'm going to see how that choice plays out. If I take ownership like an adult, it's still the karma that I get to handle. Now, if I have Dharma, what really equates, at least from my experience personally, is that there's not like, oh, I made a mistake. I need to cancel everything out and I'm going to consider this a mistake that I've made. We don't use words such as mistake in the sense of a 5D from the love cycle arena because of consistent connectedness to our consciousness and being ourself. So when we learn from something, it's not a mistake. If I learn from it, it's not an error. And that's a difference from a one type of individual who consistently is expanding consciousness versus those who rearrange themselves. So their consciousness is in a separation and then they bring it together. But let's say again, as I was stating, they use the word, I dealt with my karma. They use it in a way that is different than those of us who know about karma, intuitively speaking, but we do Dharma because we're in neutrality, exploring the duality, thoughts, emotions, not justifying thoughts, not justifying emotions. We're doing inner growth from that lovely heart of ours, being our imperfect, flawed self as a human being. That's normal, which is why we don't understand love cycle person, why people don't know how to talk. In fact, it's very sad for us to see this when I got to learn from the psychoeducators about how most people with partners, this is for the monogamous community, because I'm polyamorous, so I have a very different way of relating to my loved ones, being a safe haven and safe base within my own self, and with those same individuals speaking the truth of my heart is not a hard thing. So I don't know this challenge of let me hide myself. The monogamous individuals that go to counseling for couples, and all people can go to counseling. Obviously, this is something that's a known fact, right? Anyone who feels the desire to support their own expansion, which is a positive thing. The ones who have moved beyond stigma, of course, and the ones of us who promote, hey, don't stigmatize. We get it. Our ancient ancestors, they had a very different way of relating to that mental health situation. I still remember one of the scenes when I was with my grandma where she was reacting emotionally speaking to a very silly, today it's considered a silly disease. It's like a skin thing, and the terror in her eyes, the terror in her voice. This is something that an adult would understand, even though we won't agree with it. An actual adult will know emotionally, and here, an intuitive adult, because this is where the somatic empath comes into the mix. Because other people will have seen the same thing, and as we exchanged thoughts, they saw something different. I saw the terror in the eyes of my grandma and the emotions, and I still remember. And I'm like, well, she lived in an era where this is considered what she's speaking. Of course, she's still, her body is that keeping the score or a scorecard. Her mind is interpreting with the same data points the past, and in fact, she was speaking what her reality was. And no matter what we were trying to talk, because here's where your body, your emotions lead the way. Your brain is following it. The left is the verbal. The emotion is not being tended to unless the person's aware, which in this case, again, reactiveness is what my grandma was in. She was not aware. She was unconscious of her reactivity. And no matter how we twisted and turned and tried to explain, the fear didn't go away. Why? Because she's still interpreting that word, that skin thing, whatever it was. I forget. It was, again, something silly. The dermatologist fixed it, okay? But it's something that was seen and insulted. And in fact, she was like, in my time, they would do this. And again, a smart person is able to understand terror, emotions. And this is because a smart person is not reactive. They're stable, mature, adaptive, rational, and teachable. This doesn't mean they have one truth. No, they actually know there's a difference. If people want to talk about objective truths, give me data points. I don't know if I'd use the word truth. Subjective is a lot more of what we got going on, because any data point is with interpretation. So in our relationships, we are subjective individuals, differentiated selves, 5D people. We can always grow our relationships because of that. Tapping into your infinite higher human consciousness potential experience is an integrated mind and a restorative embodied self. So it's a person who's aware of their emotions as they arise, handles them with care, with mouth, and speaks. Because there's respect with each other, there's not, let me cancel you and do the unhealthy cutting that people have adapted from the adaptive children, like the Zen tradition story from Sadhguru, the non-disciples that circle the compulsive thief, and they don't want to forgive the compulsive thief because the compulsive thief has thieved. What shame is a compulsive cycle of loop thinking and a biochemistry of fear. So all of the people who get into their little groups and they start shaming, blaming, faulting, revenging, justifying their emotional actions, activity, they're not doing anything transformative. In fact, they're not in a spirituality process. They're not in a human process either. They're not actually aware of themselves in a way that they can be who they can be from here, which is, wait a minute, I can calm myself, be mindful, be in mindsight, be in this, and say, I don't need to emotionally react, not in a physical, life-threatening situation. And that is what will get your nervous system, which was in a yellow, fight, flight, turned off empathy, zeroed out, or the red is an emotional trigger, reactive. So like when people have anger issues that they can handle, they're not issues, but they're the self of you that learned to protect yourself or saw things and basically something you can work with. So when we have emotional triggers, we can work with, thanks to others that will present to us in compassionate tones, hey, you know what, that attitude, that thing, it made this, and can we work on it, for example. The adults, we always get to do that. So people move out of yellow into green, social engagement system, ventral vagal state, yoga, great portfolio of ventral vagal toning exercises. Yoga, again, or meditation helps you with mindfulness. You get to learn how to navigate your cortex. Prefrontal cortex is your third eye. If you're in a state of physiological compassion, what happens is that third eye, your prefrontal cortex, is taking in information. With mind sifting, you're also able to, okay, wait a minute. So here, my somatic empath, my grandma, doesn't matter what I'm going to say to her, she's still in this fear state. Let me hug her. Let me let it go and leave it alone. Because there's no trying to prove I'm right. No, this is her experience. Subjective. I can accept it. Being adults, very straightforward. Not needing to be those non-disciples, not needing to be those adaptive children, harsh, unforgiving, rigid. They go chaos. They go into this way of nah. Or even not, I'm right, let me keep on trying to make you agree with me. Make you do what I want you to do versus accept. You're a differentiated self, I'm a differentiated self. You're your own person, I'm my own person. And we can talk with love in the forefront, compassion, respect, understanding of us all being humans. We all have a past, we all have a present. We all can build a future together. It is through our infinite higher human consciousness potential experience that we do that, and through functional adult love language, through compassion and love, and being there for each other, especially for compulsive wanting to break those shame cycles. So be there for each other, love each other, support each other, and we'll be back.